What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Daily AI Show. Today is March 19th, 2026, and I'm joined by Andy, Beth, and Brian. Glad y'all are here. Appreciate you hanging out with us day in and day out. Don't forget that we are here 5 days a week. If you just did happen to find us, we've had new subscribers literally every day now. We're growing. So if this is the first time you're hanging out with us because you thought the title was good, whatever that might be, I won't know the title until the end of the show. But whatever the title is, when you do happen to watch this, if that's what got you here, just know that we do these shows 5 days a week. And then we also have a newsletter that goes out on Sundays. And we have a small episode that's called our Conundrum episodes that go out on Saturdays. And I feel like I'm about to cough. So Andy, why don't you kick us off with the news so I can go on mute?
Okay, great. I want to talk about Anthropic's really amazing AI-powered, Claude-powered interview of 81,000 people around the world on various subjects on the overall topic of AI. And I'm going to share my screen and just walk you through this, but it's pretty impressive. So no, don't click leave studio there. Share screen. Okay. Let me pull this up and we'll get going on this. This is really interesting. So I'm showing first this navigable map of where all the respondents to this survey came from. And you can see there's a cluster in the United States that's concentrated in Florida, where Brian is, and on the Northeast, and then on the West Coast, with Colorado and Texas having some density as well. You see a bunch of people in Europe responded. Israel, very strong in responses, a very dense AI concentration there. Japan, people all across Japan responded to this invitation to be a respondent to the survey. And they use their new technology, which is this, it's a combination of tools within the Anthropic system, but it's called, Claude Interview. And it does this all magically. Anthropic Interviewer, a version of Claude prompted to conduct a conversational interview. So apparently it's a back and forth text and or voice exchange. And now let's just see what they came out with. Here's the first section called What People Want from AI. And the top response, with about 19% of respondents saying this is what I need, is professional excellence. And then they provide examples for each of these. And you see here, the next one is personal transformation. So a lot of it has to do with me. I want AI to help me, not only in my work, but also to transform my life and then help me manage my life. If it truly, a quote here from a manager in Denmark, if AI truly handled the mental load, it would give me back something priceless, undivided attention. Then the next one's similar and related is time freedom. What can I do with my time if AI helps me? And then lower down on the list, entrepreneurship, definitely, something that a lot of people talk about using AI for, especially because of the advent of vibe coding and the ability to build products that could end up generating revenue for you with great ease. All right, so then they move on, and there's a lot of discussion here, obviously generated by Claude, and really nice. Then this is the question, are you getting what you want from AI? And if not, what are you getting from AI? And the first one is productivity. People who use AI feel that productivity is really enhanced as a result of using it. I certainly feel that. I would be loath to go backward in time and have to do what I'm doing today without the assistance of AI. Okay. The second one, though, is, wait, AI has not delivered. And here's a great quote from someone in Germany. AI should be cleaning windows and emptying the dishwasher so I can paint and write poetry. Right now, it's the exact opposite way. Like AI is generating poetry and generating images, and I'm the one who's having to do all the monkey fingers work, as we described it. And as we spoke on the show yesterday, you may be invited by an AI agent someday to do some mechanical work with your body for it.
Right.
Yeah. So reversing the thing.
And that was the original idea of monkey fingers, but now we're like in monkey legs, monkey bodies,
Right.
monkey appear as human to complete the transaction or something.
Exactly. Okay, then what do people worry about? And the first one, with 27% of respondents saying something in this category, unreliability. And I had a recent experience with GenSpark in this category. An erroneous assumption, a bad conclusion by GenSpark took a whole day of my work away, and actually embarrassed me professionally. Because anyway, I won't go into the situation, but it made mistakes that I ultimately was able to catch, but not until I had already produced and delivered some results that were just way off base because they were based on a false premise. Okay. The next one, of course, jobs and economy. We talk a lot about the disruption that AI will bring. I'm not going to go through the rest of this thing, but there's a lot in here. This is an interesting point that I'll just close on, which is, everyone is, learning a lot from AI, I think, not only through experience and practice, but also I tend to learn a lot by asking questions of Perplexity or Claude or Gemini. And, people have come to expect and have observed that they learn things from AI. But at the same time, there's this concern around cognitive atrophy. There's a quote from a heavy AI user. I don't think as much as I used to. I struggle to put the ideas I do have into words. Oh, maybe you should start a podcast, heavy AI user. And that way you'll at least have to articulate what's going on with this whole thing.
Yeah, I don't personally feel that way either. I guess, this person is saying they're a heavy AI user out of the United States. And as somebody who would consider myself a heavy AI user, I mean, I certainly deal with it day in and day out. I find that it's actually quite the opposite for me. I find that I'm being challenged to be more succinct. I'm being challenged to be thorough, to not take shortcuts, to really give good descriptions and directions. And this is a lifelong thing that I've always, aspired to be a little bit better at. I've stood up in, a through line with my professional career, although I don't do it as much now, is actually teaching, but not as a teacher. I was always either it was in fitness or I had my own gym, or when I was in, as a firefighter, I used to do quite a bit of training for folks and stuff. I was in charge of a lot of the training when I was in Iraq as a contract firefighter. And, that's something that takes a long time to get good at. And I actually feel like AI is forcing me to even get better. I mean, I suppose there's a day where I can just say really dumb things into my computer and AI will go, I know exactly what you mean, Brian, and just take it from there. But I don't feel that's the case. I feel very much so that it's still garbage in, garbage out. And so it forces me to actually be better, I think, in terms of my cognitive load. If anything, my cognitive load is strengthened from it, not weakened. I don't get that at all. I guess if we get to a society where it's WALL-E, the Pixar movie WALL-E, and people are just having everything done for you, and there's no need to think beyond the next 30 seconds. Sure, I just don't feel that way today. I don't know about you guys, but I find it's actually making me better.
Well, we talked on Tuesday about needing to be responsible for the way that you use AI, right? You can use AI to get worse at critical thinking, at the ability to write, at all of those sorts of things. You can also use AI to get better at all of those things, right? So it's a little bit your choice. Jen would like to remind people that if you have a bingo card with firefighter story on it, you can mark that.
That's per episode now. It's firefighting stories per episode. We're looking to see if you can get to 4 or 5. in a single episode.
In a single episode, you just hold
yeah.
your hat. I can
Yeah.
clearly talk about firefighting for an entire episode. Maybe I will one day. Maybe I'll show up by myself. Everybody else won't have shown up that day, and I'll be like, "Oh, y'all are in for it now," because I have firefighter stories galore and a lot of analogies. All my firefighter stories have analogies and life lessons applied to them. So it'll be
All
a
right.
fun show when we get to that someday.
So we'll do the firefighter frame story. I will counter with improv stories, and Andy
Yes.
will counter with all of the things that he's ever done
Yes.
for jobs in his entire life.
That's right.
That's
We'll learn
only
about
because
how many jobs
that's
Andy's
only
had.
because I'm so old. I just have longer history than you guys do. So I just wanted to mention again that this incredible collection of data across many cultures and 81,000 people around the world. I was interested to see that there's 0 from China. 0 from China, but Mongolia had responses, right? So it wasn't that they couldn't access it, but apparently the interviewer program was not programmed to ask people in China, I guess, because there must be Claude users in China.
And I didn't really look deeply at that world that you had, the globe there, but it also, 81,000 is a lot of people, but it also does point out that we are missing the feedback of a lot of the world right now when it comes to generative AI. And I think that's a good call out too, is that there are just a lot of places around the world who, for a lot of reasons, have not had the opportunity to be part of the conversation, and that can be problematic. We don't need AI solutions that only work for, obviously certain parts of the world. We need solutions for the entire world. So, while it's impressive and it makes me think, this type of interview type system that they set up, where else could this be really, really valuable? I mean, there's so many areas where surveys would be really valuable.
Yeah, I have an example of that, by the way. Just yesterday, I was invited by Perplexity to be a contributor through an interview process, a voice interview process, to the product team that's doing Perplexity Computer. And I said, sure, I'm happy to. And so I went through their AI-powered interview on that subject. And you basically, it'll pose a question, and then you record your answer, and then it responds based on your answer. And it was really a very satisfying conversation. And at the very end of that whole process, and I provided very detailed, commentary about my experience using Perplexity Computer. And at the very end of it, it said, would you be willing to, communicate directly with people on the product team at Perplexity Computer? I said, sure. And so not only did Claude just present an enormous example of the acceleration of feedback from a very large population, but now we're starting to see the emergence of AI being used in product management to actually interface with a significant number. I'm sure I'm one of hundreds of people who were invited to do that. A significant number of people to provide detailed feedback on a product experience.
Yeah. I told you guys, I think a week or two ago, that I had it was customer service. It was an interview. Same thing though, where it was a really pleasant experience, and I'm pretty sure it was AI, but I'm still not sure to this day. But I never circled back to find out. And also, where I built a solution for a client where it's a pre-interviewer for a company that does, they handle job interviews for other companies. They're interviewing agency. And that's exactly what it does. We built it through Alive Labs using their premier models, and it has a knowledge base on it, and it's able to easily, we set it up with the right data, and it's able to, you call into a number and it says, hey, I'm so-and-so, and this is, it's about this particular job. And, I'm going to go through a bunch of stuff, and it qualifies location, salary ranges, the whole gamut, all the way through the conversation, asks you about prior experience. And what that does for my client is it helps them pre-gather this information, without having to sit on a human call for sort of a pre-interview. By the way, I always like to point this out. It's said immediately that this is AI. So I'm not a big fan of trying to trick people. So I just want to I'm not building things that are trying to trick people. I just feel like I want people to know that. But it does say it's AI, and it says exactly what it's doing. And it says, if they meet through these, they match these certain criteria, then there's going to be a human call and follow up actual interview after that. Really, really cool to see what you can build with that. And it's we're deploying it for them so it can help their team, who's gotten really, really busy, be able to handle the right types of interviews versus like trying to handle all the interviews. So, just a small example there. But I love what you're saying, Andy, and what Anthropic has built. And holy moly, there's all sorts of areas that I think a tool like that could be deployed quickly could be really valuable.
Absolutely. I'm going to weave off that and go to the story that happened yesterday afternoon about Meta having trouble with AI agents that go with an AI agent that went rogue. So, and it exposed sensitive company and user data to employees who did not have permission to access it. So we know from Rachel Woods that Meta uses playbooks, right? So there's a structure of what needs to happen in response to some sort of input. And so a Meta employee posted on an internal forum asking for help with a technical question, kind of thing that happens all the time. It's very standard. However, another engineer asked an AI agent to help analyze the question. And the agent ended up posting a response without input from the engineer or asking permission to share it. And Meta has confirmed this. The reporting comes from the information news source. And as it turns out, the AI agent did not give good advice. The employee who asked the question ended up taking actions based on the agent's guidance, which inadvertently made massive amounts of company and user-related data available to engineers who were not authorized to access it for 2 hours. Meta deemed it the second highest level of severity, Sev 1, in the company's internal system for measuring security issues. So, Summer Yu, who famously famously had to run and stop OpenCloud from deleting her regular inbox, not the test inbox, is the safety and alignment director at Meta Superintelligence. Posted on X. Posted on X talking about that. So, like even the companies who are have systems in place, particularly for this, are running into that kind of thing. So, it is important to be reliable, and it is also important that you don't rely on reliability, because
which in the survey, remember, reliability was the number one concern.
Yes.
People are concerning themselves now with just how reliable the outputs are, because there's mistakes being made. We've known about hallucinations for a long time, but now the outputs to me seem much more convincing because they're so complex and thorough, and yet there can be underlying assumptions in there that are biased or beyond that, just plain wrong.
So one of the things that is possible now, and I think it's still a shift that people are making into, I am also making a shift into it because I'm with you, Andy. Like, okay, I don't have a ton of time. This looks right to me. So I'm going to move forward on that. But we probably need to be looking at the review subagent that happens before we take action on the data. It can be run as a subagent process. Is like, double check all this, right? Like, find why this is wrong. It can even be an adversarial thing, right? Like, so run 2 or 3 of those processes. All of the systems have lower level models that can do that kind of thing, like Sonnet, right? You can have Opus do the thing and then have Sonnet double check it. So I think that's part of the workflow moving forward.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no reason why not. I mean, with, what did you guys already talk yesterday about GB4 Mini and Nano? Did that come up
Karl?
in conversation?
5.4 mini and nano. I
Yeah,
think,
what did I say?
I don't think we talked about it.
Did I say 4.4, 5.4 mini and nano? Yeah, I mean, other than just to say that they came out with those models, but they said that they were, available through the API and specifically to be run as almost like sub agents, right? That was sort of the idea behind it. So, just branching off what you were saying, Beth, as far as like the need for more evaluation, the need for more checks and balances when we're, running these systems. And so I do think this is going to be more and more commonplace because it's becoming cheaper. It's becoming easier to do this where, any one answer, I've said this many times in the show, is, bounced against 3 or 4 different checks to the point where I think you finally get to something that maybe approaches something like blockchain. And I'm not talking about crypto or any of that stuff. I just mean in terms of what blockchain technology is there to do, whether it can get that type of level of like verified. I'm not sure, but I do like the idea of using AI to basically bulk test against AI to such a degree that the error rate drops to something that's not a problem anymore. I'll give you an example of this. So I have a client. I did a deep research. It had to do with data hygiene inside of Salesforce, which, as Beth, you would know, it can be very complicated, can be very costly. And so the client wanted us, Scale, to, do some due diligence and find out whether AI could in fact help out and save them some money in this hygiene process. And ultimately, my report back after a lot of work and a lot of tests and stuff like that was, no, I do not have confidence that I would move forward with this because the high level of reliability that the client needs for this CRM data to be right, they certainly don't need an AI that's right 95% of the time, but has errors in there when it was going in to clean up the CRM. And so it's actually one of these situations where I had to go back to them and say, based on everything I've looked at and everything I'm looking at, I would not move forward with this. I can do it. There's no doubt about that. I can demonstrate to you the workflow that would go and do the work you're asking for. However, at this point, I don't feel so confident that I could give you a level of reliability that would be good for you, the client, and, it's just part of the job sometimes, right? When you're doing AI consulting is to say, I don't think AI is the solution here or AI is only part of it. But if I could just think ahead like a year or two and the ability to have these small agents in this same process, I bet you I'd be able to take a no to a yes for that client with data hygiene, because I would be saying to them, yes, we're going to do this process, which I can lay out today. However, the key difference is before it hits your CRM, it is hit from 6 different directions for validation. It hit this way, that way, the other way before it got a high level of confidence and put it in the CRM. And of course, for the end user, they don't see anything different. It just shows up. But I don't know. Maybe I could build that today, guys. But it's like that. There's such a lift, and there's other companies that do this type of work. So I just had to go back to them and say, I don't think this is work we should do right now.
All right, let's touch on a couple of other dramas that are occurring here and getting some consideration in the chat. But welcome, Karl. Karl's joined us, and good to have you here. I'm going to just talk quickly about the OpenAI and AWS cloud deals with Microsoft. Okay, so Microsoft originally had a lock on OpenAI process, right? So all OpenAI models were running through Azure. So they had the big flow of money coming to them for all of the inference costs for OpenAI's models. But then OpenAI announced a deal for $50 billion with Amazon Web Services Cloud to kind of break away from that lock there. But there was an exclusive hosting lock that was released, but that retained a clause that forced developer access to OpenAI models to run through Azure. So not the general public, but developer access. And you know that a lot of the inference runs are coding inference runs that are using OpenAI's models, Codex and 5.4. So this is probably not announced by Microsoft, but it's been determined that Microsoft is weighing a legal action against OpenAI and Amazon over this deal that violates the clause in the agreement between Microsoft and OpenAI that says all developer access has to go through Azure, not AWS. So there's some struggle there. And apparently there's a quote, an FT source said, "We know our contract, we will sue them if they breach it." That's a quote from somebody inside Microsoft's not revealed.
But OpenAI has also famously said many times we're unable to move forward because of lack of compute. So if the contract didn't actually address, hey, if you're not able to do your work with what we're giving you, then maybe there's opportunity for that to be, maybe it's not quite breach, but I'm not a lawyer or contract lawyer. I just know that there have been times where Sam went public and said, "Hey, do you have compute we could use? Because we could do stuff with it. Talk to us." Hey to all our watchers, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Say hi in the chat.
Yeah.
Okay, one other quick drama piece. Apple quietly blocked updates for Replit and Vibe Code and other vibe coding apps, so that the apps that Replit, for example, a very large player in the world of vibe coding, the app that they have on the App Store can't be updated. Why? Well, this is selective application of platform rules by Apple. That's actually a gatekeeping move by Apple to slow down their use, because Apple just recently added vibe coding tools to their Xcode platform. So they want you to use Xcode, not Replit or these others. So there's a lot of moving parts here in the competitive landscape, and that creates drama and tension. There's friction out there, people. It's going to get hot.
The quick add to this that I saw is Replit may gain approval by opening generated apps in external browser instead of an in-app web view, which I guess is one way. It says, while Vibe Code may need to remove the ability to generate Apple platform software. And then just a little footnote here. Since January, Replit's mobile app has dropped from the 1st to the 3rd in Apple's free developer tool rankings on there. So, yeah, I guess there's maybe some potential ways around it, but we've seen this show before where, Apple locks down. And by the way, they're not the only ones to do it. We've seen this move from others too, where they lock people out and don't allow some of the tools to be used, and whether that's good or bad PR.
And then the question is, doesn't this, just like our lockdowns on China's access to the highest level chips, doesn't this just prompt a workaround? And that workaround's emerging quite rapidly, which is AI doesn't necessarily require that you build an app store version. You can actually develop an app that can be run on an iPhone, and it doesn't require the app store to do it. So they might be shooting themselves in the foot.
And in fact, often the apps that the frontier models have built are not on the App Store yet, right? Like you go to their website and download for Mac or Windows or whatever it is, iOS. Yeah, it seems like a clunky move. Garrett's saying dumb move by Apple. So.
Yeah, Apple's going to do what Apple's going to do, right? They kind of have their own, they beat to their own drum on it. I do have another quick story here that I thought was interesting. This is about Minimax, which is a Chinese AI startup. And I saw a note here that said Minimax M2.7 is a new proprietary LLM designed to perform well-powering AI agents. But that's not really what the story was about. The headline says that M2.7 proprietary AI model is self-evolving and can perform 30 to 50% of reinforcement learning research workflow. Now, this is from VentureBeat, and I have not dug into this article enough, but I think that headline is a lot to talk about, like what was the term they used? Self-evolving. This is, anytime we hear self-evolving, we think of Prometheus, we think of the stories of Max Tegmark and stuff like that. But I think we're going to see more of this, where these models are, for lack of a better term, fixing themselves.
Yeah. So I'm sharing a screen from Artificial Analysis, which is the go-to resource to see where each of these models plays on various benchmarks, and they have this sort of aggregate index called the Artificial Analysis Intelligence Index, and they're showing in this diagram that comes from Latent Space, by the way, their previous release, Minimax M2.5, scored 42 on its intelligence in this index, and this new release 2.7 jumps up to 50, exactly at the same level as GLM5, which made a splash just last week, coming out as from Z.ai, which is that these are both open source models. And then you see all the players to the left of that block are, the ones that score even higher. And those are closed models from Anthropic, OpenAI, and note again, Gemini 3.1 Pro Preview is the leader, matching the score for overall intelligence with GPT 5.4 X high, even though it's not as recent a release as GPT 5.4 with extra high reasoning tokens. But the big news is in the bottom part of this graph, which is going up higher on the graph. You see Gemini 3.1 Pro Preview over here is more intelligent, but going over to the right on the graph is more expensive. Gemini 3.1 Pro Preview gets the highest score, along with OpenAI GPT 5.4 High, but GPT 5.4 Extra High costs something on the order of $3,000 to run the test on Intelligence Index. And Gemini 3.1 Pro Preview less than $1,000. Well, not too far behind that is GLM5 at around, let's say, $600. And then Minimax M2.7 does their incredible performance in the order of around $200 to do the same thing. So much less expensive for competitive reasoning. And this is all important to all of us because we're rapidly approaching the time when local first agentic AI is going to want to run locally with a model that's not expensive. And you can access Minimax now at a much lower cost than you can by strapping your local claw type agent to use reasoning in the cloud. You can have it go look at Minimax. And eventually we'll get an open source model like that that's small enough that we can actually run it locally on a machine that's pretty high end at this point. But it's all moving in that direction.
Yeah, for sure.
So there's so many stories I want to jump toward from that, but I will go to Val Kilmer. There's an art story happening. Val Kilmer's estate has approved the AI performance in a movie that he was in discussions with before he passed.
Mm-hmm.
So let me grab this. There we go. So he'll appear posthumously in the Andy will say that word in the indie film As Deep as the Grave through a generated AI recreation of his likeness and voice. The role had originally been written for him. His estate approved the use. His daughter Mercedes approved the decision. The film is now seeking distribution. So this isn't AI cleaning it up. It's a full recreation. He is no longer living. And the consent is central to the conversation, but it is controversial. And like As Deep as the Grave is like a title that is resonating in all kinds of ways.
I know. I thought that was an interesting title for this story. I was like, well, that was well played. As Deep as the Grave, you know, for the story. And people are saying like, wow, in the comments and stuff like that. I think you said it right, Beth. Consent. You know, his family is on board with this being done with his legacy. That should be good enough for people. You know, now people might have to argue whether Val might have been okay with it, but he's not here. So it passes down to his estate. And if they're saying they're okay with it, why would I personally have a problem with it? You know, it's okay, sure.
Well, it's interesting because some of the pushback that I was seeing was pushing back against Val Kilmer is in this movie. Right? Val Kilmer is not in this movie. The previous videos that trained this likeness and potentially trained some of the choices is in this movie, but it does actually bring up the so when an actor performs, the director has input to that, but it doesn't have control, right? They don't have control. The actor is at choice. If the actor is AI, the director has, or whoever's writing the prompt situation, has complete control over the choices that the actor's making. So that was like a nuance that was part of the discussion. Like, you cannot say that this was a really interesting, that this was an interesting set of choices for Val Kilmer to make in the role.
Right.
It may be an interesting and controversial set of choices for Val Kilmer to make before he passed. I don't know from the detail in this. I know he was excited to play the part. I don't know if there was a conversation like, cool.
Yeah, use my likeness afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah,
it'd be interesting to know if that was in fact discussed. I mean, it certainly, I don't know when Val passed away. He
had
he was in the latest Maverick movie, but even that was shot during like COVID or before COVID. So it's probably been 5 years, right? Something like that.
Well, and he had
he had throat cancer, like a tracheotomy.
He lost. So he had previously used AI assisted voice restoration technology because he had throat cancer and he lost his natural voice. So tribute, consent, performance, synthetic media, like all of those pieces are in this. Does use of AI for one thing imply use of AI for another thing? Again, there's no question that the estate and the children have the right to approve this. So that's not a question. But
it's more like, did he ultimately approve this? Yeah, I know. I get it. Look, I go back to like, as far as the entertainment value of it. Okay. Just as somebody watching this movie, I go back to that, ABBA show that I went and saw with my family in London, and it's all like holograms and put on by ABBA, by the way. I mean, they're the ones that helped create this show or whatever, but it's not them. It's 1970s ABBA. I wouldn't even consider myself an ABBA fan. It was very interesting and very entertaining. That's what I can tell for everybody. It was a very interesting experience to do that. And so I think we'll see more of this with people who have, passed away or whatever. I don't know if eventually people will seeing a very live rendition of, Elvis or something like that on stage, where you can't really tell anymore whether, it's obviously not him, but you know my point. It's like, It's hard to distinguish human from AI versus, who knows, maybe even, humanoid type robots at some point. If the dexterity gets to a point where you can't really tell, it's moving mannequins.
I think this sort of goes into an interesting next conversation to have with your loved ones, right? Mm-hmm. I know that both of my parents said, I don't care what you do with me when I die, right? Like, I'm no longer there. Do whatever works for all of you. And that statement takes on new meaning, right? Like,
Yeah.
maybe be more specific about what you don't care about in terms of use case.
But would you really care though, because you're dead?
Yes, I think
You care about your
because
legacy, I suppose.
it doesn't, like, my parents didn't care whether they were buried or cremated or given. Like, my father would have wanted to be in one of those mushroom bags, so it feeds the earth or whatever that is. But there are people who knew me and know me who would be impacted by my appearing to still be alive. Like that, in that I would care.
Okay, so Val Kilmer is a copyrightable legacy estate asset out there, and that's a thing to weave off of to talk about Seed Dance. So Seed Dance made a big splash because of the excellence of their ability to generate video, and now copyright disputes from Hollywood and cease and desist letters from Hollywood to ByteDance, the parent of the Seed Dance system, also the original parent of TikTok. Now there's a TikTok in the US that's independent of ByteDance. But anyway, they got all these cease and desist letters, and now formally, in the last couple of days, they've suspended the global rollout of Seed Dance. So it was available in China, and you could gain access to it with Chinese language and so on. And there are some other third-party platforms that make it accessible here in the United States so that you can play with it. But now ByteDance, has stopped their global launch. Why? Because the system is able, currently, as it's articulated, is able to generate images with high fidelity about, representing copyrighted characters. And so that's the source of the cease and desist. Now, what's going to happen in the future? Probably ByteDance will make small changes to that Seed Dance platform, and then they'll release it as part of TikTok's creative suite. And then the TikTok version in the United States may license that and so on. Or they might release it into CapCut, for example, and also other players out there, including Gemini and VO and their line of video generation, plus plenty of other players in the video space that I don't follow carefully, will match or exceed the Seed Dance capability.
I'm curious. I thought you could access Seed Dance now through CapCut. I have not gone into CapCut and tried that, but this may be one of those places where Americans learn the use of VPN technology that the rest of the world has been doing for a while, because we get the things first in this.
Karl uses Seed Dance.
I gotta go.
Oh,
yeah. I do, but I don't use. I use it in Higgsfield, and it's not there. And in Higgsfield it's not there, and in CapCut I haven't seen it. I don't normally edit my stuff in CapCut, but sometimes you just go in, try to look at templates and stuff to see. Although they make you pay for some of that stuff now, but no, I haven't seen that. Okay, my only comment before I do have to go though. Does it really matter though? Because if it's not Seed Dance, once all those videos came out, I'm sure some company would reverse engineer, like, oh, now we understand how this thing plays out, and it's right. It's over, right? Like, to me, it was like, once the first videos is like this, it's done. Like, you can
pull one weed to
sure, you can cease and desist that, but like your clock is now ticking. It was always ticking, but now it's there. Like, we'll see.
They just got there first.
Yeah, got there first, exactly.
And honestly, this isn't even the last of it. I mean, like, yes, we were impressed, as we normally are, when we see something that looks real, like the Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt fight scene that sort of went around the internet. But let's be honest, I don't care who creates it. It's 6 months, 9 months, a year. That's going to look fake. Like, we're impressed today because we haven't seen AI do something like that. And that's why it gets a lot of press. But it's, as we've always said, the worst it'll ever be. So it's only going to get more convincing, more high def, more, frame by frame incapable of figuring out that it was AI. I'm sure now people are able to figure out pretty quickly, by doing, looking at pixels and things like that. That's just going to get harder and harder and harder, just like we are right now with, still images. I know Karl had to jump. Tomorrow we'll get back to this if Karl is here, but he wanted to talk about Stitch. So I'm going to hold off on that because actually we were saying on the side chat, it wasn't working for me, but he said he did get it to work. So he had to jump, but we'll make sure we come back and circle back to Stitch, which no, not from Lilo and Stitch, but from Google Stitch, which is one of their Google Labs offerings. And so we can talk a little bit more about that.
That's
tomorrow.
their design system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's Vibe Design, and that's a weave, right? Can we get Stitch to add Stitch in Gemini Stitch for Google Stitch for design? Or will they also say that Stitch is proprietary IP and you cannot design based on Stitch with Stitch?
I'm very
follow
lost.
that, but
I'm very lost.
What she said,
but,
whatever that was.
Yeah. Somebody's bringing up in the comments, sort of in the same area, because we were just talking about pixel by pixel and images. Midjourney 8 was just released. I just saw a thing about that. Maybe
It's
in the last day. Oh, it's alpha. Okay. I looked at the landing page for it from Midjourney to see what kind of examples they showed, but honestly, they just pointed me back to log into the Discord, and I didn't feel like doing all that. So I don't know what people are creating with Midjourney 8. I don't know if you guys have seen any examples or anything that would stand out one way or the other. But yes, Midjourney came out with their latest model, and I guess we'll have to wait and see what people do with it to see if it's different in some way or, stands out,
Right.
as far as image creation goes.
And this is a good time to remind people that AI is not software. So Midjourney comes out with the new model and people need to play to see how to prompt it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And the other thing that seems to happen, and I don't know if what I saw was a joke or not, but it looks like there's some animal legs and fingers that are still problematic again. And so that will need to be updated. And that's my experience of like a new image model dropping. Yep. The hands get worse and then they get better.
Are you still going to be, are you going to be testing it out at all personally, Beth?
Yeah, I will.
Okay. So we should have a little feedback from you in maybe the next couple of days as you kind of use it and things like that, which would be kind of cool. So yeah, more to come on the Midjourney side of it. I want to, if we just have like, I don't know, we have just a few minutes here. I know there's been some discussion already this week about, or a bit about NVIDIA and their, a lot of the quotes from Jensen Huang about OpenClaw and obviously a big push there. I want to just circle back to something he was saying, that every business was going to need to have a OpenClaw strategy, basically, is the way he said it. And that's when he mentioned that you sort of quoted, every SaaS will be a gas, I think is the way he said it, like an agent as a service, basically. And I'm just curious what your guys' thoughts are on that. I mean, one part of me says, like, sure, there's some levels of business who need to be thinking today about what their OpenClaw position is. That's kind of the way he said it. But he said all companies. And I thought, wow, I don't know that there's a lot of companies that necessarily need to be thinking or looking at that right now. I'm not saying it's not important. I'm not saying it's not valuable. But of all the things I think a lot of, small companies who are trying to move fast are probably focusing on, I don't know that MyClaw or that type of agentic system is something they're focusing on today. Do you think do you guys think that's a miss? Do you think that like, no, it doesn't matter what size company you have, you really need to be thinking hard about this? Do you feel like, kind of like what he was saying on the stage, although he had good reason to say it, I want to say, like, why he was pushing MyClaw, because NVIDIA has a solution for that, right? So they were selling that. He was pumping that up on the stage. That's fine. But what is your guys' take on this? is this the new computer, as he said? Is this something that is akin to the first release of ChatGPT? Do all businesses need to pause and figure out what their MyClaw solution is, as he said it? What do you guys think?
So I'm going to say that not just as a MyClaw user or as a Claw user, but also as a business that agents may be reaching out to hire you for things, right? How are you verifying as an in-person plumber who is not using AI in your business, still going to engage, have a process, understand that, so that you are understanding that you were booked by an agent, right? Like I feel like that is kind of the sea change of this, that it's so ubiquitous and easy now, like easy to do it, not easy to do it right. Those are not the same things. But I think if you're engaging in commerce with people, you do need to understand that sometimes the people are agentic representations.
So I think small to medium businesses can take advantage of a Claw implementation, and Nemo Claw is, I think, an enterprise focused approach to it that shows that there is a way to structure it in a full system stack like that, which NVIDIA has open sourced. So there'll be smaller, easier to access versions of it, I think. But I believe that it does enable a more direct route to business process automations than does using a system like N8N or other approaches to doing automations. You just basically ask the agent to do that. And this is a 24/7 running agent on a local machine inside your small business that will execute those processes for you. I know of one example, just one so far, where OpenClaw running on a Mini is doing something that a year and a half ago, it would have taken weeks and weeks of testing and implementation and management attention to try to set up. And instead, it was set up in a day. And it does that, repetitive process every day for that company. So I think there is a space for that sort of, simpler approach, sort of natural language approach to directing an agent that has planning and autonomous execution and, has access to reasoning models that can, marshal the whole process.
Right. And if we go back to what we were talking about earlier in terms of having adversarial agents double check, right? It could be that your business process, you do the thing, it goes into a queue, and then your autonomous agent on every half hour or whenever the heartbeats are goes back and looks at it, and then you get a message back that says, okay, these invoices look great, this needs some explanation or wrong code or whatever those things are. That's a really good point, Andy.
Yeah. And the other nicety of the Claw systems is that it can communicate easily through Slack. So if you're using Slack, that's the interface through which to, both interrogate the agent and or receive the output of the agent. It can be distributed easily throughout your organization to those people who have a need to know. And then you could create a set of skills that agent has that can be called by either communication with, Telegram or WhatsApp or Slack. And so there's some niceties there that don't exist when you try to, implement and execute using the previous generation of automation tools.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's why I wanted to ask you guys, because I was curious what your sort of take on it was. Is this the sea change, as you said? Do people need to be paying more attention to this? Then maybe, it's gotten a lot of buzz, obviously, but then there's buzz, and then there's like, what are you doing, with your business, in your business, with your clients, whatever it is. So just curious what you guys thought on it.
Well, let me add one thing, which is, I have yet to actually set up a claw anywhere on my systems, but I have sort of matched the competence and capability of claws out there using Claude Cowork, and it's rapidly developing suite of tools and abilities, and so I can do that way. And then there's also, I actually named it Purple Claw in our Slack instance for the Daily AI Show, but that's Perplexity Computer, which isn't a claw, but it does things very similar to what a claw can do. So I haven't yet done a claw, though I'm looking forward to doing it. I do want to do it, but there's, 50 different variants that you have to choose from of approaches to setting up a claw on your local machine. And I want to make sure that, those are battle tested before I put it on my AI workstation over there and give it free access to that.
So Ethan Mollick the other day that he had dispatch, which I know just came out for, he had early access to it. And he said it could do 95, something like that, 95% of what his OpenClaw instance could do by just having dispatch added to it. So it does, it won't be the only solution. Obviously, there's going to be many different varieties of this, from the very easy user-friendly side of things. I mean, my Claw is a very easy user-friendly as things go. It's still a user interface, but it's nicer, and it sets up the VPN, the server, the virtual server for you. Basically takes care of everything out of the box. It's like hands off, really. I mean, I was using it within minutes of setting it up, but there's issues with that. I would actually, I'm more happy to go back to, I have not used Cowork. I've only used Code, but to go in and test with dispatch and things like that, and just think outside the box about probably stuff for this show. Honestly, if I'm being perfectly honest, I don't know how much of this will get to, but I'm looking forward to this cruise I'm taking in a bit, so that I can have, my vision is that I'll be, and Jen, you can start calling these cruise stories. It's fine. You can put it on your big card. But I'm doing a transatlantic cruise, and I do look forward to kicking my feet up with a view of the ocean from somewhere on the ship, and just slowing down without the humdrum of, this show and the things I do out, post show, and all my work that I do for scale and stuff, and literally just sitting down and going like, what do I want to build from this cruise deck today with Cowork or Dispatch or something like that? Like, what's something that I can build right now sitting in this chair, and just having fun with it. So I'm actually looking forward to that. It's in the next few months when that comes up, just having that time to like disconnect so that I can just kind of open my mind a little bit to the possibilities. And I think that's been the hardest part for me personally, is just time to stop and open up my mind and go, well, what could I do? And that usually the best ideas come from my sort of thinking sessions like that,
Right. What I'm really looking forward to, and we're sort of there, but we're not quite there. They all have claws, and the claws have their own Slack channel, right? And so we're asynchronous because we only see each other for this hour, and then we're messaging at whatever times, and people respond at whatever times. I love the idea of adding some synchronicity for that, right? Like, can you go ping, go ask Brian's Claw about blah blah blah.
Yeah,
and
which would be great.
And that is an easier way for us to be available for each other in ways that we just can't in general.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to wrap it up because actually I have a meeting. So if you guys are cool with it, we'll wrap it up really quick. I'll be back tomorrow. I think, Andy, you're here. Beth, you're not. I don't think when I first saw it, so it might just be me. Maybe me. So thanks everybody for hanging out with us today. And we will see you back tomorrow on Friday to wrap up the week. But appreciate everybody. Thanks to everybody in the comments. We had tons of people coming in live today. So again, if this is your first time, we're here 5 days a week. Just want you to know that. Come back and hang out some more with us. We always appreciate it. All right, that's it. See you tomorrow.